Well, hello everyone. This is Dr. Eileen, and this is Medicine Walk. And for those of you who are listening in on Blog Talk Radio, this is Healing House Radio. So I hope everyone had a wonderful week. And in this discussion of light and shadow, sometimes just the idea of talking about it can tend to stir things up a little bit. So if you're noticing that, well, you're noticing light and shadow a little bit more consciously, then that is a very normal occurrence of having a discussion and kind of opening up the thought process around that. So if you have any questions, I am during the premiere episode of on YouTube. I am in the chat room, so I'm live there now. So if you'd like to log in and ask questions, or if at any other time, you can message me, and there are ways to reach me in the description. And so we can talk a little bit about this, because this is a huge subject, so we're just kind of skimming the surface of it. So, we've talked about light, shadow, and we've talked about light. Now we're going to talk about how those two integrate and how they each affect things in our daily lives. And one of the key areas that it kind of, creeps into is relationships. So we're going to be talking about the way that light and shadow can impact different parts of your everyday world. And we're going to start off talking about relationships, because often I will get a lot of questions about how do I deal with my own light and shadow and deal with the light and shadow of the person I'm in a relationship with, which is an excellent question. It opens up the possibility for communicating in a very profound and important way. And light and shadow don't have to separate people. In fact, it's by understanding your own light and shadow that you can understand someone else's, and that way you can actually be able to use those discussions to create a deeper and more profound and closer relationship. So, when you consider, as we've talked about, light and shadow are both based in choice. And it's what you, the conscious, collective you, decides that you want to do about something. If a situation comes up, you have a light side response and a shadow side response. And both of those think that they are the better idea. So, the old visual of the little angel, and then the little shadow guy, on the other shoulder, and each one is saying, hey, do this, no, do this. So, in looking at it from an energetic viewpoint, which energy creates resonance and which creates dissonance? How is it that, and even if, something may seem to be, it's like, oh, well, I'm answering from a shadow aspect. Well, the question would be why? Why do you think you are? Because you're angry? No, everybody gets angry. Anger in and of itself is not shadow. It's how that anger is applied. And, let's use an example that your significant other has done something or said something that was hurtful to you. And first reaction is tell them off. The first and maybe that is the first reaction. It's like, excuse me? And, you tell them about themselves. The other reaction would be, okay, let me think about this for a second, and let me come from, compassion, and I'm not going to say anything to them. I'm not going to address it. I'm just going to hold my space. Now, most would think it's like, oh, well, holding the space and coming from compassion is automatically a light response. Not necessarily. Sometimes we need to speak our truth and to not respond. If somebody says something hurtful to you, you don't have to match their energy, but it doesn't mean that you say nothing. It means that you might take a breath, take a pause, and say, you know what you just said is not okay. And we need to talk about this, because that was hurtful to me, and you need to understand that I will not accept you saying something like that to me. Now, what that does is it addresses what the situation is. It addresses what, what you're feeling, but it doesn't let them off the hook. It's not, oh, well, I'm not going to say anything, and then have it eating you up inside. So it's not always so clear, but the source, or the goal is to look at what your intention is in that moment. If your intention is to be hurtful, either to someone else or by suppressing what you feel you have every right to say, hurting yourself, is there a hurt intended in it? If there is, then that moves it to shadow. If telling somebody, excuse me, no, you do not get to talk to me that way, that intention is based in clarity. It is based in establishing a boundary. And if the intention behind it is, self-protection, an expression of self-love, and, just saying, no, that is not all right, that would be a light response, even though it is directly confronting the person. So it's not always that clear. So when in doubt, what is the gut intention? If the gut intention is, I want to be hurtful to that person because they were hurtful to me, okay, then that moves it into shadow, because what that does is matching hurt for hurt is about creating more dissonance. It is not about creating understanding or resonance. So just kind of take a look at what the intention is. And, let's say the person had no idea. Maybe it was a word or an action. They had no idea they were being hurtful. Maybe, it's like, well, I was joking, or whatever. So if the case is that that person had no intention to cause harm, or no intention to, create stress, to respond from a place of, it's like, well, you may not have intended harm, but I do, because I want to hurt your feelings because you hurt mine. That goes straight shadow. If somebody says, hey, I'm sorry, if after like, hey, that was not okay, and the person says, oh my God, I'm sorry, I did not mean it, I was being insensitive, I'm sorry. Any pursuit of, oh no, you're not off the hook yet, any pursuit of that is going to go into a shadow place. And that is a response of your shadow. That's not a response of theirs, because they were not coming from their shadow place. If they did not intend to be hurtful, honestly didn't intend to be hurtful, then if you're responding to an unintentional hurt from that place of, well, I'm going to make you pay anyway, then that is a shadow response. If the person, and it doesn't require you accepting the apology. You can still go into light, and, if the person, oh, hey, I didn't mean it, I'm sorry, it was a joke, all of that, you can still be in your light and say, I understand you didn't mean to be hurtful, and it still was. And I'm going to need a little bit of time to kind of process through this. And we may need to have a discussion about what is and is not funny. You can still hold that space. You don't have to immediately go, okay, they apologized, I have no right to continue to be upset. That is a discussion. That is an evolution of a particular event. So focus on what the intention is, what that person's intention is. And, if you're empathic, you might have a little bit more of a feeling for genuine intention. That being said, it can be really, really difficult to trust empathy when you are actively involved in a relationship with someone. It just makes it very challenging, because, the interpretation, the filter it goes through differently from someone who's a stranger, someone who you're working with as a healer or practitioner, and someone who you are deeply connected to, because the stories get created. And and stories are an important part, because what happens is it's the story that we create in our minds that is the deciding factor as to whether or not we're going to go light in a response or come from our shadow. Because it's not so much what happened, it's the story that gets created around it. You know, back to the inconsiderate statement. Somebody says something, and if the story that I create about it is, you know what, it was a stupid joke. It really was a stupid joke, but I know that they really didn't mean to be hurtful, and I need to clear this up, because that joke was not funny. Or if the story I create is, that person took a dig at me, they always wanted to take a dig at me, they tell me that it doesn't matter, or that it's a joke, but I know they're lying, because I know that they're, and then it starts, oh, just like everybody else who, picked on me, and then it starts gaining momentum. Shadow loves nothing better than to have a relationship glitch turn into a major issue, and then it can start it's like throwing logs on a fire. That shadow side is going to say, see, and they did this, and they did that, and they did that, and this is just like what those other people did, and you couldn't respond to them, but you could respond to this one. So the idea that it becomes that place of, okay, now my intention is going to follow the story that I create. Therefore, that is how I determine whether or not I'm going to come from compassion or I'm going to come from, fight or flight. And most likely, fight. So take a look in the personality types that are in your relationship. And there's a lot of ways that, personalities can be evaluated. And you can take a look at what it is that, it's like, well, sometimes it's opposites that attract, and sometimes, similar personalities, find their way together. It's like, either, the teeth in the cogs, where, each section kind of fills the other. And, some people are in relationships that work really well, but they are really very different people. And some, it's like, they are just alike. They finish each other's sentences, and they think alike, and they respond alike. So wherever you are on that spectrum, take a look at the times that there is not a meeting of the mind. It's a little bit more difficult to, kind of determine light versus shadow when there's not a conflict. Usually it's something that tests that balance, that says, okay, we're flipping the coin here. Which way are we going to fall, light or shadow? What is the story that I'm telling? If, it's someone who has a lot of issues, a lot of relationship issues, it's going to be a lot easier for that shadow story to come out, because, it's probably the two words that have the worst effect on a relationship are trust issues. The next two words that have the worst effect on a relationship are abandonment issues. And whether they're trust issues or abandonment issues, these can create a negative story every time that automatically tips it into shadow. And and ultimately it is for that person to work out for themselves. You cannot fix someone's trust issues. You cannot fix someone's abandonment issues. That is a very complex thing, and it's something that they need to work through themselves. You can support, and if someone is going to just, it's like, well, I have trust issues, I have abandonment issues, and then they act as if they don't trust you, or they assume you're going to abandon them. These are the types of things that relationship counseling is very good for there to be an ability to find the tools to get past the issues that, the other person is not responsible for it. The person who owns the issue is responsible for it. And if they choose to go into that shadow place of either accusation or defensiveness or whatever, the other person in it didn't do anything wrong. It's not their fault that someone was hurt. I mean, frankly, I can't think of any of us who have not at some point been hurt in a relationship. Does that mean that we have carte blanche to make every single relationship after that, constantly be proven? It's like, no, this person hurt me, but they're not here, but you are, so I'm going to make you prove that, I can trust you. And you're going to have to prove that every single day. That is exhausting. And frankly, that's not a type of relationship that I would consider healthy. If somebody has that aspect where it's like, yeah, I'm sorry you were hurt, and if I didn't do it, I'm not going to, pay the price for this. Figure it out. Figure out either to accept me for who I am or find someone else. And that's really sad, because if you can figure out, first understanding your own shadow, because if somebody is just constantly accusing you or making you prove that, you're a good person, or making you prove that you're not going to hurt them, that puts a huge pressure. And what that does is that triggers your stories that send you into shadow going, we didn't do anything wrong. If we're going to get accused, we may as well do something. If we're already going to be assumed guilty, we may as well do something to be guilty about. So it can go into a lot of different directions. And by setting a boundary, good boundaries always support light. Good boundaries that say, I accept you, and here are the things that I need in this relationship. I need mutual respect. I need to feel safe. I need to feel heard. And, if that mutual respect piece is not there, if, there's accusations or whatever, or the person is taking out their issues onto you, no, that's not okay. If you didn't do the crime, don't do the time. And once again, you can't fix them. You can be as loving as you want. You can be as supportive as you want. At some point, something's going to happen. Either you're going to miss a call, or you're not going to answer a text, or whatever. And if this person is determined to create a story in their mind that goes straight shadow, then there's nothing that you can do. So how can we make these elements work for us in a relationship? That's an example about how it can go into a bad direction. These elements can also work for a relationship, because the idea of understanding first your own stuff, be aware of your own stuff. If you have trust issues, own the fact that you have trust issues. You don't have to, and I'm not saying that if somebody has genuine trust issues, if they have genuine abandonment issues, I'm not saying you don't have a right to them. You just don't have a right to take them out on someone else. And it means that you have an opportunity, once you recognize, okay, this is an issue I have, to work on it, to resolve it, to take care of it. It's very easy to slide into reactive responses, to react as opposed to choose action. And remember, light and shadow is based in choice, and it is driven by our stories, and it is identified by what our intention is. So, going to a situation where someone says, hey, you know what, I've got trust issues. You could either respond with, well, you know what, bye, because I don't need that kind of drama. Or you can go into, oh, okay, I'm going to spend the rest of my life and I'm going to prove to you every single day and all the time that you can trust me, and I will take every test you give me and I will do my best. It's like, okay, those are options. Let me suggest a third. Saying, recognizing within yourself, maybe if somebody says it, you go, you know what? Thank you for telling me your truth. And I'm going to kind of process that a little bit. I'm going to see how that feels inside of me. And I want to be as honest with you as you've been with me. That it really makes me feel uncomfortable to think that I am going to be, judged based on what someone else did. So let's talk about this. But thank you so much. And we're going to have, kind of a agreement. So we're going to decide how we're going to manage around this if we choose to continue a relationship. That, we can create an agreement of honesty between us. And that if we have questions, if there's a question of trust, that the other person will bring it to a discussion and say, I felt really uncomfortable when this happened. Now, this may seem like it's a lot of work. It isn't. It really isn't. Once you set down the agreements take you out of reacting to light or shadow. It brings you to the center. It brings you to the balance point. It brings you to that place in between where you have choice, and it's like I could either go totally this way, or I could find some place in the middle where I can be in my truth, I can accept this person's truth, I can understand how that feeling could develop, and I can be true to myself and appreciate myself and respect myself enough to decide, okay, is this something I want to pursue? So make sure that you're checking where it is when reacting to something. Relationships are tremendously complicated. They are constantly evolving. And as each person grows and as people connect more intimately, you go into those deeper layers. And when you go into those deeper layers, you've got light and shadow there waiting for you. What do you choose? Do you choose reaction, or do you choose choice? Do you choose to pause and say, okay, what are we really dealing with here? What is my ultimate goal? And how do I feel that the most resonance can be created? And sometimes the most resonance that can be created is to say, you know what? I really don't think we're right for each other. That is light. To say you don't want to be with someone, or you don't feel that it's right to be with them, where becoming codependent and just catering to every whim and catering to everything, that is actually shadow. It looks happy, it's got a big fake smile, hooked to it, it seems cooperative, it seems to create peace, but it doesn't. It's not being in integrity. Light keeps you in your integrity, even if it's saying something hard. But if you are being honest, see, and that's the other thing that always goes to light. Authenticity and integrity always trend light. They always head you in that direction. Because when you're being authentic with someone, even if you're telling them something they don't want to hear, you're being honest with them. Telling someone something that they want to hear just because it keeps the peace is not light. It is shadow. So just because something seems peaceful doesn't mean it is. And it's important, really important in a relationship with somebody to be able to be yourself. To be true to yourself. Because they should love you for you being you, not you being who, you think they want you to be. It's tough. It really is. Do I have all the answers? No. And for me, at this point in my life, my truth is that, I prefer being single. And some people may find that, and there are people who have sought relationships, and it's like, no, I'm really more comfortable, because for me, it would be wrong for me to involve myself with someone and have the other things in my life be more important. If I care about somebody, they should come first. And right now, my work, and there'll be a time when I have less on my plate. But the things I do, and the people I serve, and all of that would have to take precedence and would have to come first. Which is why I don't seek a relationship, because I couldn't honestly say that I will put you first. At least not now. And if someone seeks a relationship with me, I tell them that. And I make it clear up front. They're very sweet, they're very nice, and I don't want to see them hurt. I don't want to see them, feel bad or feel abandoned. So look at your shadow. Don't be afraid. It's not going to bite you, and it will serve whatever intention you put behind it. Look at the stories you create. If something comes up in your relationship, look inward first. Say, okay, this is upsetting me because, and give your honest answer as to why that's upsetting you. It's, well, because they were inconsiderate and it made me feel bad. And it's like, well, you felt bad, from it because, because I felt like I wasn't respected. Well, and being disrespected upsets you because, because it makes me worry that maybe, they don't respect me, and maybe I don't deserve respect. So what started off is I was upset at their comment. If you work it through, becomes I was worried because maybe I didn't feel that I deserved as much respect. Or maybe there's a part of me that's, putting that impression out there. So it becomes, a study of ourselves. Our own light and shadow is the best way to figure out how we are going to respond to the world. How easily we get sucked into somebody else's shadow. If somebody else comes up and, just blasts us with that negativity, what is our choice? To match the energy, or to be able to go into that place of, okay, what is my story around this event? What is my intention in my response? And what is the ultimate goal that I want to achieve? So as we question ourselves, question what it is that the inner conversation that we're having with ourselves, before it becomes the outer conversation we're having with somebody else. Because if my shadow is talking to your shadow, it's not going to end well. If my light is talking to your light, then yeah, we've got a conversation we can have. Or if we're both in a place of balance, if we can be in that neutral place and just talk about what it is that the event was, not that, you always or you never, or bringing in all that other stuff, but just isolating it to this one event, this one experience, and then working it through the whole way by talking about it, by saying, okay, this is what I felt. Well, I didn't mean to make you feel this way. My intention was this. Well, the intention ended up going in this way. How do we resolve this? What can we do to keep this from happening again? So, if you're having a difficult time in your relationship, it may just be that the stories that are being created are setting shadow against shadow. Take a breath. Contact someone to see about getting some couples therapy. Talk to someone you trust. And step out of the shadow pit and move yourself into that place of, okay, what am I really dealing with here? What do I really want? What do I really need? Because as soon as it starts becoming about questions, not stories, it becomes about gaining information. It comes down to clarity. If you can bring clarity in, stories go away, the shadow doesn't have anything to feed on, and that way you can get to your intention about what it is that you do want to achieve. So, good luck with that. It's tricky. It really is, and it takes practice, but you can do this. It is not so hard once you start practicing it, and then it becomes immediate. As soon as a conflict comes up, it immediately goes into that place of, oh, okay, well, let's go into the dialogue. Let's start figuring out, let's gain clarity, instead of going with the story that is a very sad story and probably not entirely true. So good luck. If you have any questions about that or anything else from this video or any of the others, please contact me. You can reach me in the description as my Twitter link. You can join up the Medicine Walk with Dr. Ayleen Facebook group. And you could also reach me in the comments section. Those of you on Blog Talk Radio can leave a comment there, or please check out the videos. Go over to YouTube and check out the videos. If you like them, if they resonate with you, then you can like the video, you can share the video. If you like, you can subscribe, because, you know, it's nice to see more subscribers coming in. And if you would like to support me on a higher level, because I really want to expand this and, you know, have it be a much bigger thing, and to be able to share this information in a much better way, then you can support me on Patreon, and the link for that is in the description. So, thank you for joining me. We'll see you next week. Oh, and I forgot, today's my birthday. So, you know, it's interesting to be another year older, and I hope that for those of you maybe who are also having birthdays, I wish you a happy birthday as well. So I'm going to go and spend some time enjoying with family and maybe having some cake and blowing out of candles and making my wish. And I wish a wonderful wish for you, whatever it is that you would like to see in your life. I wish that for you. So until next time, I wish you balance, and I wish you blessings from my heart to yours. Love you. And class dismissed. I'm going to go get some cake.